If you drive coming from the east to west, it's just a country gravel road. Weeds on both sides of the road. You can see the cemetery and there's a row of crosses. Then you drive around the curve and there's an old tree there that kind of hangs out over the road. And there's a garage that has paintings and people have written on it, vandalized. And you can see the side of the church.
The church and the cemetery is set on kind of a high knob. It's the highest spot, you know, for some distance around. To the south is a kind of a swamp. It's wet a good part of the year, and that's just the topography of the ground. This would have been a logical burial site because it was high and water wouldn't stand on the graves. But the first burial was of a little boy who was killed when a well pole fell on him. That was about 1843. We used to be able to identify the oldest tombstone. It has since weathered until it's illegible, and the date on that was, I think, 1847. I understand there had been two previous church buildings. The first, I think, was a log church. It was built at what would be the east end of the cemetery. The next building was a frame building. As far as I know, there's no kind of picture or description of that anywhere. I would suppose it was built sometime in the, maybe in the 1850s or 60s. 1878 or 9 was when the brick building was built. Two-story brick building with the lodge hall on the second floor. The building originally was 2 floors. There was no basement, and you got to the lodge hall by a stairway and a back door on the back side of the church. In 1940, they decided that they wanted to do an extensive remodeling of the church. They knocked out the walls of the second story and bring the roof down intact and set it in place for the building. And they raised the floor from what it had originally been. Where you step in the entrance was probably the original floor height. They did rebuild the entrance from what it had been, but everybody wanted to keep the bell, so they kept the bell in the belfry. That whole work cost $3,500.
Downstairs there is one large room, and then there was a men's and a women's bathroom, and an area that was used as a kitchen. Then after I purchased it from the person from which I purchased it, that it was on a website, a haunted website, as a haunted place. So I looked that up and saw that it was called Satan's Church, and I understand that's where a lot of my calls are coming from.
I've heard a lot. I've heard that there has been multiple Satanist groups that have occupied the building, performing satanic rituals and stuff, whatnot.
One of the legends was that sometime since the mid-50s, that there were several cults that met there for satanic worship I have no basis for this. This is all hearsay evidence. However, evidence at the scene in the past has proved that there has been some type of worship going on there other than your mainstream Christianity or something like that. Another legend I heard was that the graveyard was put there beside the church because the church had so many deaths because of, let's just say, circumstances beyond people's control.
I heard people used to meet there in like a cult or something.
There used to be cults, I guess, that met down there, and they wore like capes and little hats so people couldn't recognize them. They would have fires out there.
I heard people used to skin cats there for like sacrifices.
The biggest legend that I've heard about it was when they'd have the satanic rituals, they would have sacrifices. And the incinerator-looking thing back there, they would burn the bodies to get rid of all the evidence.
Legend has it that the chimney stack to the right, or the west side of the building towards the back, is where they would burn the corpses at these satanic rituals, but it actually looks like an old barbecue.
It's actually a barbecue.
When we remodeled, they put in a furnace, which has pretty much fallen into disrepair.
Kids actually used to live in the church. There were people who lived in the church, and they would tell us stories about ghosts and hearing things in the house and things like that. Those are the stories we heard.
To the best of my knowledge, there never were any stories about someone actually convinced that they saw a ghost.
There was a legend because there for a long time there was, if you look at the church at the bottom, like where the basement is, there's windows, and there used to be a light on. And during the day, you couldn't tell if the light was on, but at night you could always tell that it was on. And so there was a legend that one of the ghosts lived down there.
I've also been told that if you go there, you can see lights in the basement or something, like green lights or red lights. I can't remember the exact story.
I've never heard that one before.
Another legend was, like every other haunted house or haunted anything, is that if you go up to the door and touch the door, something will happen or come out and I don't know.
There's a garage on the east side of it, and as you look at this garage door, you see a hole that it looks like someone sits in there and watches you, which starts out being very creepy.
It just was something that was vandalized. Somebody threw a rock or something through it.
And as soon as we started approaching it, I got this real eerie feeling that, all the stories were true. Stories of, it being Satan's church, devil worshippers, Satan enthusiasts, whatnot, burning people, having sacrifices. Very creepy. I thought that I had an overwhelming feeling in my stomach. So we pull up, and there's been talk of the owner putting a sink pit in the driveway.
There was. And it's funny how somebody just came out here and dug that and then covered it with plywood and rock, and some of these people that come out here and aren't supposed to fell in. Isn't that something?
I'm well aware of the pit. I witnessed the pit. There's a little bit of discrepancy who put the pit there. However, I do know that there was a young man. I say young man. He was in his teenage years. He drove in there, and the pit was deep enough that his back axle went into it. It was actually hid. The pit was hit by a piece of plywood covering the hole, and once you drove over it, then it crunched in. He backed in at that certain time and fell in. He was stuck there. His vehicle was stuck there. They actually had to call a wrecker to get it out, and I believe there was significant damage to the axle and the wheels of his vehicle.
So we parked along the cemetery and decided to check out the grounds, just to see what it was like, So we walked around and saw the incinerator in the back, and as soon as I saw the incinerator, I was like, this is really up, In the actual yard of the cemetery where the incinerator was, there's just this one big light, sort of like a street light, and kind of put an orange glow over the whole scenery of it. That was very, very creepy. The outside was just insane. So we walked around for a little bit, checking out all the spots that everyone's talked about. As we were approaching the church, we saw crosses that looked like they had been spray painted very high up on the top of the church itself.
They got these stars that look like they're 15, 20 foot off the ground above these windows, you know, not knowing what they were, and then, like, the rain has made them look like they're, you know, like charcoal and it's runny. So it's got this eerie feeling to it.
I've seen the black stars that they've painted up around the top part.
There were rods that were run through the building to give it extra stability. So I think that was part of the structural sturdiness of the building. And those were simply ornamental ends to those reinforcement pipes. I really don't think there's been a basis for these legends to develop.
I see lots of those. I call ourselves junkers. We like to antiques and to junk, but I see a lot of those out in for sale.
As you walk back behind the church, there's a door that's supposed to be padlocked and everything, and it was wide open. We kind of got freaked out and decided we'd go back. Everyone just jet towards the car. And me and one of my other friends, we decided that we would, you know, check it out, see if there was anyone in there, just to make sure that everything was safe so we could continue looking at the grounds. So me and my friend go back to behind the church, and we're very, very at ease about the whole thing, you know, steadily going up there, making sure everything's all right. And I look inside the door, and there's a basement. There's stairs that go down to the basement, and there's stairs that go up. And the basement was completely pitch black dark. All you could see was the light reflecting from the outside. And upstairs, right at the head of the stairs, was like a mirror, so to speak. And we look into the mirror, and I thought to myself, I thought I saw someone in a black hood just standing up there. I didn't say anything at first, and then my friend saw the same thing. We didn't know what to do, and we kind of froze there for a second. And I was looking at the mirror, just trying to make sure my mind wasn't playing tricks on me. And as soon as I thought I saw it moved, we booked it out of there. And I can honestly say I was very, very creeped out about it. I don't know if it was an animal or if it was actually someone in there, but I was definitely creeped out by the whole thing.
My friends said they saw that cloak-type figure inside, and those people at Okefenokee saying that they saw a cloak-type figure on the property. I mean, there's countless times where I hear people talk about these figures being seen out there, and, you know, that makes me wonder.
I mean, we looked around for a while, and then decided to head back, and it looked like there was crosses with circles around them on the windshield.
For many years, didn't seem to be any problem, and we did not lock the church. Then there began to be some problem. I remember one time we went on a Sunday morning, and apparently it had happened like a night or two before. Several of the windows had been broken. Some things were stolen, a few items of furniture. After an incident or so like that, then we began locking the church, which again was not real satisfactory because not every family had a key.
At first it was just typically on the weekends, and more so in the nicer weather when school was out, but anymore it's kind of hit and miss.
It's been broken into quite often. Things tore up. Parties down there.
Kids used to go out there, and they used to run them off all the time because they'd go out there and party. They'd drink or smoke pot or whatever. The county cops patrol that quite often because it is so secluded out there.
But I had a Blazer parked out here for a while, and it got broken into, and the CD player stolen out of it. Does that count?
When you'd be at the neighbors sometimes at night, you could hear people down there making noise and stuff. They probably weren't supposed to be there, but that was about it. I think it's just kids that don't have anything else to do, and they read about stuff on the internet, especially in the summertime when it's warm, people don't have anything else to do. they decide that they'll go looking for something, and they get there, and since no one's actively there, very much, just break stuff.
Not so much now, but probably 5 or so years ago, there were people down there all the time. Especially like at night, you would come down, like coming from this way, you come down, you'd see people like with flashlights. You can tell that they have flashlights and lighters and things. When I got my license, I used to get out of the way to go to Michael's, and I don't do that anymore. There's people out there sometimes, so. But you can't ever see what they're doing. They're always, it's not that they're out like in the cemetery or out in front of the church, it's behind the church, like in between the cemetery and the field, is where people hang out or whatever it is that you do.
I think it's completely uncalled for. If you're going to go to a place that you definitely want to check out and see if it's haunted or not, you don't need to treat the property like that. I know in the groups that I go to, we don't vandalize, we don't do anything. We just go there to check out the actual spot to get creeped out. Why anyone would want to, vandalize something is beyond me. I have no idea, but I absolutely think it's wrong and it's being taken advantage of.
I would want them to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I would make them, hopefully, have the court make them pay for any damages occurred to my property.
Well, every day, usually on a shift, an officer goes out there and does extra patrol for that church. I would say if they don't do that, probably once or twice, maybe 3 times a week, we have a suspicious vehicle or a person out there walking around. It probably started within the last 6 months.
I've been out to Prairieville Church approximately, just a rough guess, 3 times every week for the last 8 months or so. It's probably been going on a year now or so. We had reports of some vandalism going on out there or something of that nature. And then we had a call for extra patrol to start. That was about 8 months ago, and I've been going out there ever since. The church has been tampered with since the first of this year, approximately once every other week, if not more. It's just really hard to get out there to try to patrol out there. And it appears that every time we go out there, they're gone from the scene, and we have no description of the vehicles or anything. Most of the encounters I have out there has been destructive in nature. People have broken doors down, broken windows, just basically destruction to the building. Some of the landscaping had been tore up. They'd been driving through there with, it appears to be 4-wheel drives, tearing up the lawn and such. But there was significant damage to the lower windows that had been boarded up. The boards had been knocked out. Someone broke into the garage with big rocks and smashed a bunch of construction equipment, including a big sliding glass door.
I'd say every time an officer goes, they either have to close a door or secure the premises before they leave. Every time. There's always doors kicked in. We usually have to get a hold of her about once a week to let her know what damage has been done, and so she can turn it into her insurance, because one time they broke the whole back door.
As far as leads on the vandalism and the break-ins, it's my understanding at this point we don't have any leads for sure. time we've had something happen there, we have had no vehicle description, we've had no suspects per se. I would like to know how this is happening without no one seeing. I personally canvassed the whole half-mile square and asked every resident there to give me a call to the Sheriff's Department on a vehicle description. Anytime, day or night, if they see lights over there, to call us. We will investigate. We have not had a call yet about that. How are these things happening? How is all the damage being done, which appears to be, destructive? And if it's destructive, why? What is about that place that they do not want the owners to build there? What is going on? Who's doing it? And I guess I have my own uncertainty of what the mystery is about. I've been there all times of day and night. I go and patrol there. I shine my spotlight up there. I have not personally seen any kind of paranormal activity, if you will. However, something's going on sometime, and nobody knows who or when it's happening. I guess I have a curiosity myself that I would like to know, not necessarily for a law enforcement, well, it would be that. It'd be a law enforcement benefit, but it'd also be to satisfy my curiosity, to prove to me that those things aren't happening by an unknown entity. And until that happens, I guess I'm going to be a little curious myself.
If anybody's watching this that comes out here, please leave me alone.